بسم الله الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبع سنته إلى يوم الدين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome again to another episode of your weekly Islamic chat show, Guest of the Week, coming to you from Sharjah TV. And as always, I'm your host, Ismail Bullock. And today, inshallah, from time to time, we like to address topics that can affect some of us, or sometimes to some extent, many of us at sometime in our life, even if it may not be a general characteristic, but we can fall into it. And today we're going to discuss the bad characteristic or bad quality that we should always try to avoid as a Muslim, which is arrogance. And to do that with me is brother Mohammed Khan. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa barakatuh.
So as I mentioned to the viewers, there are characteristics that some people have as a regular characteristic, which obviously is a big issue. And there are some characteristics that are bad that we can fall into from time to time. So today we want to touch upon arrogance and what is Islam's stance or Islam's view regarding arrogance.
Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Well, arrogance is a quality, is a trait which is seen in a negative manner. It's a negative character, it's a negative trait, a negative attitude, and Islam condemns this type of attitude. And usually this is seen as a negative character even by the non-Muslims, and we Muslims, we should take extra caution about this aspect, because arrogance leads to a lot of sins, and arrogance is something which can even lead you to hellfire. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. To begin with, arrogance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran about a story in Surah Al-Kahf. And we read the story almost every Friday, those who recite Surah Al-Kahf every Friday, about two people who had gardens. One of them, he had a big garden. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him with a big garden. And when he saw that garden, he walked in it arrogantly. He said that, I don't think this will ever perish. This will ever go. His friend reminded him, told him that you should be thankful to Allah. And you boasting about this, being arrogant about this is not appropriate, it's not correct. But one fine day, he goes in his garden and he sees it's destroyed. It's no more there. And then, he becomes of those who regret. So, similarly, when we take this parable, alhamdulillah, the Quran gives us a lot of parables, a lot of examples. So we need to take this parable and apply in our lives. The lessons we learn from this, that when we are blessed with things, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us, let it be health, wealth, education, knowledge, whatever it may be, the blessings of Allah, we need to thank Allah rather than being arrogant about it.
That's, if you look at the story of the man of the garden, and we see that actually we can relate to that, obviously, throughout history, but even in our present time, we have people who have wealth or they have position, and they literally turn around and say, this is me, look what I have, look what I've got, I am the one, I control my own destiny. And they have all these, we hear this quite regular, you control your own destiny, or I control my own destiny. And they take on this same attitude as this man. They have no gratitude to Allah for this, and they become proud to other people about this wealth that they have, or about this power. They become very arrogant. And like you said, you never hear, in general speaking, you never hear anyone say, he's such a good guy, he's so arrogant. You can say sometimes someone is proud, and that can be good, it can be bad. So you may find someone who said, I like him, he's a very proud man, meaning like he sticks to his principles if they're correct, that kind of thing, of course. But you never hear anyone saying, what a great guy, he's ever so arrogant. So like you said, it's across the board, arrogance is something which is a very negative aspect that no one in theory with the right mind recommends it or praises it.
That's right, and no one likes it, whether on any level, let it be. It's at your workplace, it's in your house, it's in your family, or let it be a strange person. If you behave with the person in a polite manner, in a humble manner, the person will automatically like it, and the person will automatically have this connection with you. But if you behave arrogantly, if a person he behaves arrogantly with the other person, let it be at work or let it be at your neighborhood or any place, so automatically you will see the negative impact of that. And that's the reason we will see that what exactly is arrogance. And there is a beautiful hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which is narrated in Sahih Muslim, narrated by Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. And this hadith is so important on this subject that it gives us a lot of lessons. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, "He who has in his heart mustard seed of arrogance will not enter Jannah." Mustard seed, I mean, our viewers, they know, you know, I know, how small is a mustard seed? I mean, it's very small, like negligible. If anyone has this small amount of arrogance in his heart, he will not enter Jannah. The hadith further continues and says, the Prophet ﷺ says, he's referring to his Sahaba. One of the Sahabi, he gets curious and he asks the Prophet, "O Prophet of Allah, people like to wear good clothes and shoes." So the Prophet ﷺ replies, "Allah is beautiful and Allah loves beauty. Arrogance is to reject the truth and to belittle and ridicule people." And SubhanAllah, this is narrated in Sahih Muslim, and we can derive so many benefits from this, so many lessons from this hadith. Number one being, the Prophet ﷺ said that anyone who has, a atom's weight of arrogance, mustard seed of arrogance in his heart, he will not enter Jannah. Therefore, the scholars have described that arrogance is one of the major sins. It's amongst the kabair. It's a major sin in Islam. Moreover, this aspect of arrogance, if we see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran about the most evilest of people in the Quran, like Fir'aun, Haman, Iblis, and the quality, the trait they had was arrogance. This is the quality of Iblis, of Fir'aun, of Haman. And let's just see the example of Fir'aun. He was arrogant. When Musa alayhi salam and Harun alayhi salam, they came to him with the message of Allah, he rejected them out of arrogance. And he used to tell his people that, I created, I am your God, I am your Lord. And subhanAllah, the arrogance he had, because he knew he didn't create Egypt, he didn't create the monuments, he required the help of laborers to just create those monuments. He knew within himself that he is not God, and he doesn't give life, he doesn't give death. He knew this, but still due to his arrogance, he claimed that I am God, and he used to oppress people if they didn't worship him. So we need to see that in our lives. We need to apply this in our lives. Let it be any facet of our life, that we need to abstain from arrogance, knowing that it is a major sin.
It's interesting because you mentioned, that there's the hadith, it mentions that, the Prophet said the arrogance is to reject the truth and to belittle people. And that is the reality of pretty much everybody who falls into arrogance. They're either being arrogant to accept the truth. So many people, they recognize it's the truth, but they're too proud in the arrogance way, or they're too arrogant to accept this. I'm not going to be one of those people. I'm not going to live my life according to such and such, or to these rules or those rules. So they become arrogant, and a large population of other people who may have not rejected the truth, but they belittle people. This is very, very common, where people think, I'm from such and such level of society, or I'm in such and such position, or I'm in such and such amount of wealth, I'm better than these people. Who are these compared to me? That's something we see quite across the world. Very, very, it's very,
widespread.
Widespread, definitely.
And when we see the quality, let's just ponder about the quality of Iblis, what did he exactly do? Because if we ask anyone today, like, do you want to be like Iblis? Do you want to be amongst those, who follow Iblis or who has his character? You'll find people, in the negative. But when we see the quality of Iblis, Allah mentioned in the Quran, in various places, in Surah Araf, Allah mentions about the story of Iblis and Adam alayhi salam. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked him to prostrate, when Allah gave him a command, Iblis was arrogant. He was arrogant. And how is this reflected? He says, I am better than him. This is what exactly what you're saying, that when people, they come up boasting that I am better than him and he is no one. So he rejected Allah's commandment, saying I am better than Adam alayhi salam. And the second thing he says, that you created him from clay and you created me from fire. Now, let's just hold here and see that these qualities are so dangerous that this doomed Iblis. This became the reason of his destruction. He disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He rejected his commandment. On top of that, two major things, and this is what we need to see in our lives as well. Number one, being arrogant by rejecting the truth. He rejected the command of Allah and saying that I am better than him. So we Muslims, we should not get this idea that this person, he doesn't have wealth, I have wealth, so I'm better than him. This person, he is not knowledgeable, and I have a lot of knowledge, I am better than him. So this is a quality of Iblis when you start thinking that you are better than the other person. This is something which we need to avoid, which we need to abstain from. And the second trait which Iblis expressed is that you created him from clay and you created me from fire. Over here you see that Iblis was using his logic. Of course, it's encouraged in Islam to be a critical thinker, to analyze, to do analysis and critical thinking and whatnot, but in the right direction. What Iblis is doing here is he is using his logic to go against Allah's commandments, to refute Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, na'uzubillah. And this is what we should know where to draw the line. We should use our logical understanding, we should use our reasoning and analytical thinking, but to understand Islam, to understand the Quran and Hadith, because we should know that our understanding, our thinking, our logic is shallow and narrow. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the all-wise, He is the all-knowing. So what Iblis did, although on the face of it, if you see the logic, it seems to be logical, but then again, you can't use this logic to refute Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Quran. Similarly, you find a lot of people today, they use their own understanding, their thinking to reject a hadith or a command in Islam or something which is forbidden. They use their logical reasoning to refute it. Alhamdulillah, if we see all the aspects of Islam are logical. They have a reason, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prescribed things for us which will benefit us, and whatever He has asked us to abstain from, it is for our benefit. But when certain things we don't understand, it doesn't go in our reasoning, we should not reject it and we should not use our logic against it. So what we see here, arrogance and logical reasoning to refute the Quran, the Hadith, this is something which is a trait, which is a character of Iblis, and we should avoid this.
Going back to the second part of the scenario of Iblis, the fact that he said, I'm better than him. You created me from fire, you created him from clay. It shows us that many people nowadays, they have the similar trait where they believe that because they're from a certain skin color that they're better than others, or if they're a certain continent from around the world or country that they're better than others. And this is because we have even Muslims who have this kind of mentality or attitude of racism, thinking that, being arrogant, that I am better, I'm naturally better than this person because I happen to be from this part of planet Earth, or because my skin happens to be lighter toned than this person's thing. And this is very dangerous as well. And we're falling into the path of the shaitan. And we know that Allah says, in akramakum indallahi atqakum, that indeed the best of you in the sight of Allah are the most righteous of you. And we know the Prophet ﷺ, he said that there is no superiority of an Arab over a non-Arab, or a white over a black, or a black over a white, except with taqwa. So the only way that you become better than somebody is by this element of taqwa. And before we go on, we're just going to go for a break. So inshallah, join us after this short break. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Now, just before the break, we'd actually spoken about the fact that this racism is something that was started by Iblis. And even if we're Muslims and we're finding ourselves falling into this racism, feeling superior to others based upon simply upon our nationality or our color of our skin, that we're falling into this path of shaitan, and we're definitely, no doubt about it, falling into arrogance. And obviously we mentioned the hadiths and the verses that talk about there's no superiority of anybody, and the closest to us are those who are the most righteous. So this is another thing that we tend to fall regularly, apart from about being more powerful or higher position or wealth and becoming arrogant. Another big aspect of it is people becoming arrogant based upon their nationality or the color of their skin.
Right, and as you rightly said, that it is to recognize each other, as Allah says in the Quran, لِتَعَارَفُوا, so that you can recognize each other. You know, someone is from a different country, from UK, Canada, someone is from India, Asia, Malaysia. So all these like nationalities and things related to your ethnicity, color, race, this is to recognize each other, not to fight and not to say I am superior and he's inferior. So again, this is a very important point which you highlighted, and that's what we see in the character of Iblis. What is he saying? I am from fire, from a different creation, and he's from clay, and he tried to link that fire is better than clay. He's just created from mud. But he didn't ponder over the fact that who created both of them? It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Both are the creation of Allah. And he tried to use his logical reasoning and understanding. Therefore, for us Muslims, we need to adopt the character of the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba rather than Iblis and his team. And what is the character of the Sahaba? If we take one example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, سَمِعْنَا وَأَطَعْنَا. When the truth is displayed, when the truth is exposed, they listen and they obey. They don't refute it, they don't put their own shallow understanding, their own narrow thinking upon it, but they accept it. And let me give you one example about this, a very famous example. Previously, when the command of alcohol being forbidden came, we knew that alcohol was widespread. And people, Sahaba, they had alcohol in their houses, in their homes. As soon as the revelation came that alcohol is forbidden from today, it was noticed that the streets of Medina were flowing with alcohol. It was like the streets of Medina had alcohol everywhere because the Sahaba, they threw all the alcohol. And mind you, it was expensive. It's an expensive commodity, and they didn't care about it. They didn't say, okay, why is it forbidden? And I don't get intoxicated like many people they say today, and this and that and all those excuses. As soon as the command came, سَمِعْنَا وَتَعْنَا, they threw all the alcohol, and this was their submission. This was
It's a complete opposite of arrogance.
That's right. They didn't come up with any excuse. Similar with hijab. When hijab, the verses of hijab were revealed, our mothers, radiallahu anha, they took the garment and they covered themselves. Whatever they could get, sheet, or they didn't think that, okay, now they have to design something, or no, whatever they got, they covered themselves. This is what the iman of a believer does. And this is what the quality of the Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ is, that anything comes, you know about something, you start implementing it from day one, from that moment itself. Because we Muslims and the viewers, we might not be knowing a lot of things. Like we might come to know about certain things that, okay, this is haram. We might be doing something, since childhood, or out of, the influence of our community or our society, but we come to know that this is haram. Say alcohol, it's haram, or smoking, or similar things. So we should immediately submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rather than justifying it, finding excuses and rejecting the truth, we should submit to the truth. And this is the quality of a believer. And opposite to this, contrary to this, is indulging into arrogance. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect all of us from it. And similar example, if we look that when people, they look down upon others, that's the second part of the hadith. One is that you reject the truth. You come to know about something, this is haram, or you are supposed to do this is wajib, this is fard, and you reject it. This is a type of arrogance. The second type of arrogance, the quality is that you look down upon people. Now we see in this world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests one group of people with another. There are people who are more blessed in wealth. There are people who are more blessed in health. There are people who are blessed with fame, knowledge, and a lot of things, children. And there are people who aren't. But this is the test of life. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that this life is a test for you, for everyone. Someone who is a billionaire, someone who doesn't have money, who doesn't have food to eat, everyone is going through the test. But the point over here to highlight is that when we look down upon people, when we belittle people, this is a major cause of arrogance. And this is something which we should abstain from. Fir'aun did the same thing. Haman, he did the same thing. Allah blessed him with wealth, and he said, this is from my own work. I have earned this wealth. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took away that wealth. This is the consequence of being arrogant and being ungrateful. So when Allah blesses you with something, for example, there might be a big sheikh, Allah blessed him with knowledge. He should humble himself, submit himself to Allah, and he should help others know about Islam or know about that particular field of knowledge. And he should, value people's character, and he should value people's, and he should understand that, people, they are ignorant. I should, pass on my knowledge to them. Similarly, someone who is rich, Allah blessed him with wealth. He's a millionaire, he's a billionaire. When he sees poor people, he should help them out. This is what he is supposed to do, rather than, belittling people and talking to them harshly, not treating them well, not speaking to them in a polite manner. So this is something which we should be very cautious about, that do not belittle people. Just a simple example, if you go in a restaurant and there are people who serve you, they come and they serve you food, the waiters, the waitresses, a polite gesture with them is something which is required, rather than, shouting at them and screaming at them and why didn't you get this, this is like this, is like that. You see a lot of people, they behave arrogantly with the drivers, with those who are at their service.
That's one thing that came to mind, that you can see a person who, with his peers, his same level, whatever it may be, family or social, people he socializes with, or even work, he's an amazing, polite guy. And as soon as he's out, like you said, in the restaurants or ordering going through a drive-through, or any people that are lower in society, if we can say that even, he completely changes. You'll be shocked. This is the same guy with the poetic, wonderful, sweet words in front of everybody. Such a polite, well-mannered, sophisticated gentleman.
Right.
But when he's ordering his tea or his whatever it may be, he's, come here, where's my tea? Hurry up, what's the delay? And you're thinking, oh, two different, like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, two different characters. So he's basically only polite to those he feels that deserve to be well spoken to, and the other people, he's very arrogant with them. So in reality, his overall character is one of arrogance.
That's right.
Because most of the people he may come across in daily life may not be the same as him. So then he really is, his overpowering character is, he is an arrogant person. And the non-arrogant aspect is just like a play that he's putting on for the people.
True. And that's why the Sahaba, they used to ask Mother Aisha radiallahu anha that, how is the Prophet at home? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was similar. He was humble, polite with his companions. And similar thing, he was humble, polite, and forthcoming with his wives, with everyone. Even the non-Muslims, he was forthcoming towards them, to introduce them Islam and to treat them nicely. And the Prophet ﷺ was so humble that anyone could just hold his hand and take him to the side if they had any problem. He didn't have that. He didn't have a special place in the gathering. He used to just sit with the Sahaba when people used to come looking for the Prophet of Islam sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They couldn't recognize where is the Prophet sitting. He didn't have a special place. He didn't like people to stand up for him. Once when he entered, the Sahaba just stood for him, but he said, you're not supposed to do this. He didn't like this because this might instill arrogance in the heart of a person. So this is what we need to see, the character of the Prophet ﷺ, where he is, subhanAllah, he is the Prophet of Islam. He was ruling, and he had people sacrifice their lives for him. But still, he expressed this humility. He was not arrogant. Mother Aisha radiallahu anha says that there were months when there was no food in the house, and they used to just have dates and water. This is the humbleness. And today we see that people are so arrogant. If they don't get their favorite food, they make a lot of fuss out of it. They make a lot of, issue out of it, at home, at work, and whatnot. So we need to have this character of politeness, of humbleness, which is contrary to arrogance. And if we don't work on this, we might be falling into the trait, having those traits of arrogance in us. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, protect us from this. So two things which we discussed is that, number one, when a person, he rejects the truth, and number two is looking down upon people, belittling people. This is basically arrogance, and we should abstain from this. One more important aspect in the hadith, which is mentioned by the Prophet ﷺ, and which we should discuss with our viewers, is that what is not arrogance? And that is also mentioned in the hadith. We can derive the lesson from that. When the Prophet ﷺ said, anyone who has arrogance in his heart, mustard seed arrogance in his heart, he will not enter Jannah. A Sahabi over there, he said, O Prophet of Allah, people like to wear good clothes and shoes. Over here, the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah is beautiful and Allah loves beauty. Allah is beautiful and Allah loves beauty. Arrogance is, as we discussed, to reject and to belittle people. So we come to know that we need to, put things in their proper perspective. Otherwise, things go hayway. When we make halal haram and we make haram halal, things, start becoming difficult for people. So what many people have an idea about that, to become humble, you should not wear good clothes, and wearing good clothes is a sign of arrogance, or having a good car, or having new modern technology or gadgets. These are all traits of arrogance, and this is a misconception, because the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah is beautiful and Allah loves beauty.
I mean, even if you look at the verse, وَأَمَّا بِنَعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. As for the blessings of your Lord, then speak about them. So
Right.
the scholars say this means you can show your blessings, but you shouldn't show them to be arrogant. If you buy yourself a nice new car, so you can drive around and say, look at my car, your car, of course, but that can be in anything. But like you said, people take this mentality that they have to be wearing old, dirty clothes so that they look, and this is closer to piety. There was one time if I can recall correctly, one of the Sahaba went with Ali radiallahu anhu into his house, and they saw that he had a nice new sofa. And they said, what is this, O Ali? And he said, we are a people that if Allah expands us, meaning our wealth, we expand. Meaning if we are giving a certain amount of wealth, then we buy things that match that wealth. We don't go and get loans to get like a car that we can't afford, and most of our salary is gone, and we have a small amount of salary left just to buy bread and water because I bought myself the latest, most expensive sports car. Of course not. But if you have a salary where you can buy certain cars, or you have income, then there's nothing wrong Islamically. This does not mean, like you said, does not mean you're arrogant. Does not mean that you're supposed to live your life like a hermit, living in a cave with old, dirty clothes. And we know that there was a man who went to the Jum'ah, and the Prophet saw him with messy hair and beard, and he told him to leave the masjid.
True.
He told him to go and shower and bathe and comb his hair. So this is not, this is not arrogance. This is, as you said, there's a middle path. There is a balance in these things.
That's right. And I met one of the brothers.
I'll just hold you on that point, inshallah. And before we discuss more, please join us after this short break. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Now, just before the break, we mentioned about, you don't have to live your life like a hermit, or you don't have to live your life disheveled and looking messy. And we gave some examples. And you're about to tell me about a particular person that you met in regards to this.
Yes, alhamdulillah, I met a person, and barakallah, a good Muslim who is, a businessman running a lot of businesses. Allah has blessed him with wealth, and he's a practicing brother, mashallah. So he told me that, because alhamdulillah, Allah has blessed him with wealth. He told me that he was about to go and purchase a Porsche GTR. His father told him that, are you purchasing this to show it to people, to have an upper hand and to show that, I have a Porsche GTR. And we know Porsche GTR is one of the most expensive cars we have. So he said, no, it's for me, because he said, if you are buying it for people to show and to be arrogant and to belittle people, don't do it. But if you're buying it for yourself, go ahead. So we see here that it's upon your intention as well. You need to purify your intention. Similarly, if let it be anything, it's clothes, it's a mobile phone, it's a tablet, it's a laptop, or anything, the things which we use in our day-to-day lives. If it is something which we want to boast about, then this becomes the problem. But if our intentions are pure, we're doing it for the sake of fulfilling the purpose, like a car. If someone buys a Mercedes or BMW, but they don't have this intention to show off or to show, it's not a problem. It's inshallah completely fine. And those who say contrary, we tell them about this hadith that the Prophet ﷺ, he never objected about this. And even regarding the clothes, the Prophet ﷺ, he had a special cloak which he wore on Eid. When he used to receive the delegates, the non-Muslims, he used to wear a special cloak. And similarly on Eid, we are encouraged to wear good clothes. On Jummah, every Jummah, we are encouraged to wear good clothes. The Prophet ﷺ, he loved perfumes. He used to apply perfume, and he never rejected the gift of perfume. So we see these things, sadly, I don't know how, but things have come into our society that if you wear good clothes or you perfume or use these things, you are being arrogant. So this is what we need to clarify with our viewers, that you can enjoy the blessings of Allah, the dunyawi blessings, the things which Allah has blessed you in this world, but stay humble. Make yourself humble with those things.
And don't use those things. Don't, like you mentioned, that's the guidelines here, that you don't make it your whole priority, like I said, to get yourself into debt, to get that car so you can be like everybody else. In that sense, that could also fall into arrogancy. And not to use this wealth that you have, or this car that you have, or these clothes that you have, to look down upon others.
True.
So you're in your car, for example, and you take a parking space and there's a guy waiting and you push in, and then he has an argument with you and you say something like, have you seen my car? Not mention any brand names, of course, but have you seen what kind of car I have compared to you? And then just look at him like that, or just looking at his car and walking off, as if to say, what kind of car is that? And that, unfortunately, is something we see very regular. There are many people who are like that. And alhamdulillah, there are some people as well, whether they be Muslim or non-Muslim, who have those kind of cars and have that kind of wealth, and they still remain humble, and they don't act arrogant. But it's something that is quite easy to fall in. And I think it's something that maybe many of us may have fallen into, what we mentioned earlier, about when you deal with what would be considered to be the lower class or the labor class, the cleaners or other people like this, that you tend to find yourself sometimes being angry with them and speaking harder to them than you would if this person was a big manager. So this is it's a very difficult thing, and some of us may fall into it, but we have to always correct ourselves and always try and say, I notice this is something that's lacking, and I think this is something that will help train you. If you make it something that you always say to everybody, please, thank you, smile, jazakallah khair. Even if the guy's serving you a tea, a 1 dirham tea or a 20p tea or whatever it may be, you say, you call him brother, you say thank you, you smile. This will help to eradicate, to some extent, that behavior, because you will feel funny the next time to speak to him rudely if it's become a custom to speak to him in a friendly manner like you speak to everybody. Right. So this is something that a lot of us fall into.
Right, and as this is one of good ways, to cure the sickness of arrogance and to abstain ourselves from falling into it. Like as you said, these kind words and polite words with people around you, let it be someone who serves you, or your friend or a colleague at a workplace, anyone, let it be anyone, because a lot of time people fall into arguments just because of this ego issues. They might fight with their colleague, with their wife, with their children, anyone, just because of this ego, because of this arrogance. So once we remove this and we try to work on this, inshallah, things will fall into their proper perspective, and we can, function better in our lives. And another reason through which we can cure this disease of arrogance is to know where we came from. Like, what are we created from? And we need to reflect upon this. 100 years back, we didn't exist. A lot of people did exist. And where did we come from? We came from the womb of a mother. What was our means of creation? We were created from a drop of water, from a drop of sperm. And this is something which we need to reflect on to know where do we stand. Irrespective of however much wealth you have in this world and fame and whatnot, but you reflect on where did you come from. And therefore, two people by the name of Mutaraf and Muhallab, they both had a discussion. When Mutaraf, this person, he saw Muhallab, he was wearing good clothes and walking in a boastful manner. And he was like, so he told him that, Allah does not like this type of walking. He was trying to be arrogant. So Muhallab, he said, do you know who I am? Like a lot of times, we get to hear this. People say, do you know who I am? And now you'll know whom you've messed with. So he said, do you know who I am? So Mutaraf, he said, yes, I know exactly who you are. You came from a drop of sperm, you're created from a drop of sperm and egg, and you will go back to the grave, in the grave. So this made Muhallab, the person, humble, and he could reflect, okay, this is my reality.
That's obviously a classic example, but subhanAllah, just a few days ago I saw on one of the social media on the internet, a woman in a particular country her daughter had been pulled over as a passenger of a man who was in a car, which the car was unlicensed. It needs to be renewed, basically. So they pulled them over and said, look, you guys can go on, we're going to have to tow the car. So the daughter had called the mother had come over, automatically introduced herself in a polite but arrogant way, start putting out her work ID. She turned out she was a commissioner of the Ports Authority. So not the police, but nevertheless a high-ranking government official. So when it wasn't going her way, and the man said, are you related to the driver? She said, no. He said, look, we've already told the driver what the offence is. She said, no, you must tell me. I am the commissioner of the Ports Authority. It went backwards and forwards. She's tried to say, do you know who I am? The commissioner of the police has been around my house for dinner. The mayor has been around my house for dinner. And it went on like this. In the end, the police didn't budge. And it went so viral, this video, that the woman in the end, she was told by her employees of the Ports Authority that this is very embarrassing for us. Either we fire you or you resign. So she resigned. So a perfect example of this arrogance that she had, thinking that because she was of a certain position, she will get what she wants, and she's higher than these average low-ranking policemen. But it turned out that she lost her job because of that, ultimately.
True.
So we can see here, that this is the very negative attitude to have.
Yeah, the consequences are bad, and we need to look into it. And even Al-Hasan al-Basri, rahimahullah, he said a beautiful statement that I wonder at people. He says, I wonder at people that in a day, one time or two times, they use their hands to clean their waste, and still they want to compete with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And subhanAllah, if we reflect upon this, we know our reality. People today, those who abuse and accuse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they reject His commandments, they reject His existence, they need to reflect upon this. Who are you and where did you come from? And where are you heading? Because ultimately, we all go back to our graves. This is what we need to reflect. Our wealth will be distributed. Whatever we have, the empire, the businesses, the cars and the wealth, everything, the money, the bank balance, it will be distributed. It no more belongs to us. As soon as the angel of death comes, khalas, we don't own that wealth anymore. It's distributed. Children, wife, relatives, they are the owners now. You go to your grave with your deeds. This is something which we need to reflect upon. The wealth which we are boasting about, or the fame, or the knowledge, nothing will benefit you in your grave. And that's where we end up. Our destination, next destination is grave. This we all know, and no one disagrees on that we will die one day or the other. Let it be a Muslim or non-Muslim, everyone agrees to this, that we will die one day or the other. So therefore, we need to work on this aspect. We need to remove the traits of arrogance, let it be in any aspect of life, and we need to work towards being more humble, being more polite towards the creation of Allah and towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His deen. Because when you start practicing Islam, when you follow the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like we see, mashallah, a lot of brothers, a lot of revered brothers, those who were born in societies and families where they were taught a particular way of worship and a particular way of life, particular religion, but when truth reached them, they accepted it. And barakallah fi, one example is you, Brother Ismail, that when truth came, the person, he accepts it. This is what we need to instill in ourselves, that when the truth comes to you, you accept it. Humble yourself before Allah, because you don't need to feel shy, because you're humbling yourself in front of the most powerful. The most powerful is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we are humbling ourselves before Him. So when any commandment of Allah comes, when any forbidden thing is made evident to us, that this is forbidden, that is forbidden, we should submit ourselves to Allah, and we should humble ourselves in front of the creation of Allah, and try to practice this aspect of being humble and polite in our lives.
Jazakallah khair. Well, thank you for coming on, sharing that with us.
Barakallah fi.
And again to the viewers, thank you as always for tuning in. And inshallah, we should try and take this away, the 2 points from the hadith, essentially, to not be arrogant by rejecting the truth, whether you be a Muslim or a non-Muslim, and rejecting the proofs and the signs of Almighty Creator Allah, and not to be arrogant and belittling to our fellow human beings, citizens, friends, communities, inshallah. And until next time, by the permission of Allah, same time, same place, I leave you as always with the greetings of Islam, the greetings of peace. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.